Welcome to the Good Mood Show. I'm your host, Matt O'Neill. Be sure to hit subscribe so that you get a good mood every single week. Today, we're talking with my good friend, Connor McKemey, who just wrote a brand new book called Life Ignited. It was just released this week. Connor, welcome to the show.
What's up, Matt? I'm happy to be here, man, and glad to get the opportunity to chat with you.
Man, same. Absolutely the same. And specifically, what you're going to learn from today's show is how to excel through adversity. And Connor is someone who knows about how to excel through adversity. He has had major adversity, and he's also excelled in spite or maybe even propelled by some adversity. So Connor has an exercise that he's going to be talking with you. So stick around to the very end of the show. We're going to explain what he calls Mac mentality. And he also has a free resource for you. You're going to get the first 2 chapters of his newly released book, Life Ignited, for free. If you're already a subscriber of the Good Mood Show newsletter, I'll send you a copy. And if you're not yet, no worries. You can download a copy of that instantly at goodmoodshow.com when you sign up for the newsletter, or just reach out on the contact page and we'll send it over. Yeah, man, Connor, you've got an incredible story. And you're an incredible success story. And I don't want to tell your story for you. So I'm just going to let you get into it. Do you mind kind of taking us through the tragic incident that had happened in your youth and then what's happened since?
Yeah, of course. So for me, my life was pretty normal growing up as a kid, as a youth. I loved sports. I had an older brother, a younger brother. We were all within a few years of each other. So I spent most of my days at a field, practicing, playing, competing, with all of our friends. And it could be up the street at our local park, or it could be in the gym, for the middle schools or whatever. And at that time in my life in 7th, 8th grade, I was basically playing sports all year round. I was a football player in the fall. I played basketball in the winter, and then I played lacrosse in the spring and summer, and then just rinse and repeat. So by the time I got to 8th grade, I really had been honestly at a practice or field every single day since the day school started up until we were on Christmas break. So I finally had a little break in the action, and there was a really, cute girl that I had liked and had been friends with for a while. And we were trying to figure out, are we more than friends? Are we just friends? And for me, I just I've always been kind of like a hopeless romantic. And so I was like, I'll, do this grandiose gesture. And if she likes me after that, great. If not, like, at least I know I tried, I put it all out there. I was ambitious in that way. And so I had this night planned where it was, we have this outdoor fireplace, a hot tub, put on some music, roast some s'mores, all that good stuff. And in my mind, it was like the perfect night to me and something to, just show that I care and I appreciate who she was. And as I'm getting the whole, stage set, basically the stage set for tonight, and everything's out there, I have everything ready. I got the music going, and the last thing I needed was to just get the fire started. And I didn't want to have her, there when I was doing that, because it could be dangerous every now and again. And I just wanted it all to be prepared for her when she showed up. And I'm struggling getting the fire to start. For the life of me, I really couldn't get it lit. And as I'm trying, there's more sparks that are flying up. There's a gas canister that's right near it that's heating up. And before I know it, there's just a huge explosion. And I just feel this force that ends up blowing me back a little bit. And I close my eyes and I can see this red, yellow glow around me. And it could have been the next 15, 20 seconds. It could have been a minute or a few minutes, but I just remember getting knocked to the ground and put out with towels and whatever they had available, sofa cushions that were outside. And by the time I opened my eyes, I just stare at my hands, and you can see the skin is peeled back. My clothes were completely burned off as far as my shirt and pants were concerned. And I didn't know the extent of how bad it would be, but it did not look great. And I tried to, be as composed as I could, tell everybody I was going to be okay as they're putting me on the stretcher and wheeling me back into the ambulance. And it wasn't until I had that moment sitting in the back there looking at the guys taking care of me, and I asked them, am I actually going to be okay? And I remember you could see that kind of grim look on their face, but they're trying to support and allow some kind of hope for a little kid. And before I really got an answer, I was knocked out. And next thing you know, I wake up in a hospital bed 3 months later, looking completely different, wrapped from head to toe in bandages. And I couldn't talk right away because I was still on the ventilator, but I just could see that this was a completely different version of myself. I felt, an immense amount of pain, and instantly I could see on my hands, I was missing a finger. My fingers were bent. I had pins in all my fingers, and you're like, wow, this is different. For me, it was like I just went to sleep and I woke up and it was a whole new world. And to try to come to grips with them telling me you were burned 90% of your body, you're probably not going to walk again, you were given a 1% chance of survival, but just be happy that you're alive. You're at least alive. And we've made it out of the toughest part of the fight, which is the early first few weeks, first, month or so, as we're getting skin grafts and healing and battling infections and all those things. But I couldn't really understand what they meant when they were saying, you're not going to walk, you're not going to be able to play sports. And being a naive teenager at 13 and turning 14 in the hospital, I didn't want to believe it. And so after a few weeks or a week or two of feeling pretty sorry for myself, I knew that was never going to change my situation. I was never going to get out of that dark place if I kept feeling sad. And so I started asking what I can do to try to get better. What can I do to sit up? What can I do to stand? And I just became addicted to trying to get a little bit better every single day, because I knew if I did that and I started building some momentum, I would eventually get out of the hospital. And who knows what the rest of the world will be for me, but I could at least start trying to change that progress. And when I first stood, it was one of the most painful things I'd felt. With my feet being covered in scars, it just felt like I was standing on rocks or walking on eggshells. And it was something I had to get used to, but the drive to just try to get a little bit better is what I focused on.
I just want to just honor the struggle that you went through. I was getting tears in my eyes as you were telling the story. I remember myself at age 13 and how self-conscious I was, and how I wanted the cute girls to like me. Right. And I wanted to play sports. I was outside every day throwing footballs and shooting basketballs and, throwing baseballs and all the things that active 13-year-old boys just love to do. And man, in one instant, everything changed, and you were out unconscious for 3 months with a 1% chance of survival. And somehow, through the grace of God and the doctors as well, and the people, I'm sure it was your family that put the fire out as quick as they did. If they hadn't, that would have been the difference too. But somehow you persevered through this crazy adversity, and there was a reason for it, right? Like, when did that occur to you, that I am here against all odds and there's a purpose for it?
I honestly don't think I had that feeling until a little bit later on in life. I think early on I was upset that this happened to me, like most kids or most people would be when they had, tragedy or adversity hit, right? Your initial reaction is like, why me? But then as you started to progress and as I started to understand I could handle this, we were getting stronger. I was making improvements. I felt, and I truly did feel that, you wouldn't be given these challenges in your life. I truly believe this. You wouldn't be given these adversities in your life if you weren't strong enough to handle. We don't always come out the other side and we don't always succeed, but we're a lot stronger than we think we are. And I think by going to that bottom of bottom where I was, it gave me a new perspective on just the strength of the human being and beings in general, and knowing that I had so many people supporting me and loving on me and rooting for me, that gave me so much more strength when I was feeling down and I was I was struggling and I was feeling sorry for myself, you just would hear stories of how much it meant, you know, to your coaches, to your friends, to your family, just to know that you're walking again, that you're standing again. And that gets you out of your bed. That gets you going again. That gets you feeling less sorry for yourself because you're fighting for more than just yourself. You know, you're fighting for all these people. And that was what I know made such a difference in my life.
Yeah. And I've been on this idea over the last year as I've faced challenges that are my challenges over the past 12 months, that what can look like a loss to our small self, our ego, can actually be a massive gain to our higher self. In that these adversities can crush us, of course, if we allow them to, and we stay in this victim mindset, or they can empower us. And really the greatest version of ourselves can be the version of ourselves that rises up, right? Literally out of the ashes, like the phoenix. And this is your story. And you know, so one of the first things we were going to talk about today is understanding the power of your mind. And do you mind kind of getting into that and how this adversity really like showed you the true power of the mind?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, the biggest battle I was facing and the biggest battle we all usually face is that conversation with the person we see in the mirror, the person in our head, the person in our heart, right? And you know, I knew that by just changing the narrative on some of the things that were being told to me, asking different questions, and using my mind as something that could be a tool to overcome instead of a tool that is going to continue to put me down. You know, I think it was, again, early on, it was really easy to feel sorry for myself and kind of wallow in that. And what you said, you know, that victim mindset, but I had to make a change, and that came mentally, it came internally, to say, I still have the keys to write my own future. I have the tools to handle this adversity, but I have to believe in it. I have to think about what it's going to take. And I have to have that, you know, understanding that it's not going to be done in a day or maybe a week or a month. But if I continue that pursuit each and every day, eventually it'll get me where I want to go. And I stopped focusing on, you know, I had these big goals that you think about, that you strive for, but I stopped focusing on when I was going to get there. And I just started focusing on what can I do today to just get a little bit better mentally, physically, emotionally, and then carry that into tomorrow and live off those little victories so that I'm focusing. And again, I'm changing that narrative on what I lost, what I can do, what I'm lacking, to look, I couldn't walk 2 weeks ago. Now we're walking around the halls. You know, months go by and then you're finally running, you're finally out moving again. Then you get back out on the field. When I finally got back out on the field, it wasn't, wow, I'm back out on the field. It's like, I have to get a lot better at playing lacrosse and running around and being an athlete. This isn't good enough. You have to continue to go. And it was, you can take that pause for celebration and enjoyment, but it was always just on to the next, because there was so much more I wanted to do. And it was because I saw with my mind, like when you set up those goals and you achieve them and you start, you know, breaking those goals and pushing past boundaries and achieving more than you thought you could, that part it becomes almost like an addiction. You're like, what can I do? Like, let's find out. And then you will fail. Wow. And then it humbles you. And then you're like, okay, all right, let's work around this, or how can we, you know, but that helps you improve for sure.
All of us could take exactly what you just said and apply it to our own lives. I personally can take exactly what you just said and apply it to my life. What can I do today? What can I do today to get a little bit better than I was yesterday? And then wake up tomorrow. What can I do today to get a little bit better? And you know, I'm going after goals as well, right? What can I do today to get a little bit better today that then will help me get this big goal? And one of my big goals is publishing my book, like you've just published yours. And so, you know, you were an incredible speaker at the Make-A-Wish Wish Night, and inspired 300 people that night with your story, and just an incredible speaker. Just what an awesome MC. And thank you for your heart too, for the mission of children that are facing challenges like you, that then get hope. You had told the story on stage about your wish coming true and how the wish actually showed you that you could handle more than you had thought initially. Do you mind telling that story?
Yeah, of course, of course. So it was in the hospital after being in the burn center in Augusta for a couple of months. I was transitioned to Levine Children's Hospital in Charlotte, where I could get basically a full day of rehab. It was like going to school, but for rehab. And I actually went to school, which was pretty cool. I got to feel like a student, but I was working all the time and getting stronger, moving around. I was probably at the best I could have been physically at that moment, right? I was speed walking around the halls. I was moving. I felt like I was getting a little agile. They have footballs and basketballs and stuff, so I could throw around. And I felt more normal than I had been in almost 6 months. But one thing I hadn't done was really test out my skin, okay? Because being burned 90% of my body, they had to replace a huge chunk of that with skin grafts, with these synthetically grown skin that was pretty new. And we don't really want to test that by having me fall or pushing me over, bumping into things. They really want to protect it. And I had this wish with Make-A-Wish to go to Carolina Panthers practice, meet a bunch of the guys. It was my favorite team at the time, and I was a huge football guy. So my friends, my brothers, we all pile in this car. We go out to the facility, and we meet everybody. We're shaking hands. We're having a good time. And then as their practice is going on, they give us some footballs, and they set up a little field for us to play a mini game. And I was going to be all-time quarterback, so I could just throw, no rushing, no two-hand touch. It was just everybody lining up, just throwing the ball around, having a good time. And for whatever reason, we get close to the goal line, and my older brother, I guess, just blacked out because it was the first time in 6-7 months he felt normal again as well. And we were back out on that field like we had always been. And he decides to blitz me for whatever reason and knocks me down. And everyone just stopped. Everyone was like, oh my God, what just happened? And that was the first time I had fallen in really in the hospital, without somebody like catching me or helping me, ease me into a chair or whatever, when I didn't have the strength. This was a legitimate fall, hit the turf.
A tackle.
Like he
and
everybody stops, everybody freezes. I know my older brother was just like, oh my God, what did I just do? But after the brief, chaotic moment, I look down, I have a few cuts on my arm and my knee, just like anybody else would get. And a week or two later, it heals. And that showed us like this skin was capable of taking a hit, which we didn't think it was going to do. So that like triggered something in my little 14-year-old brain that I was like, if I could take a hit from my brother, I could probably take some more hits on the lacrosse field. And it just gave me that hope that there's a chance that I could get back. And one of the biggest worries for them was you're not going to be able to play contact sports. Your skin won't hold up. And I was able to say, look, it did. And crazy enough, 15 years later, after playing Division I sports, college intramural sports, high school sports, it held up, and it has really changed the narrative on what they thought these products could do. Again, this was very early on in the medical stage when they were trying some of these things out with me. They had no idea what was capable. And now the whole rule book has really been changed. And there's kids, that were in my situation that are going to always be in my situation. Unfortunately, there will always be kids that will come under the circumstances of being burned or hurt or whatever. And now there's hope for them to not just get a somewhat normal life back, but go back to the life that they wanted and go live a life that they can dream about, instead of having to think, this is what I'm going to deal with for the next 50, 60 years. It's like, no, you can write your own story. You have the ability, and the medical field will back it up.
And your dream was to play collegiate sports.
Mm-hmm.
And after having 90% of your body burned and not knowing if you would walk again, you fulfilled that dream.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surreal moment finally being out there on that field for the first time. And leading into that, I actually tore my shoulder training all summer, to get in the best physical shape, to get as strong as I could. And I really was at a point where I felt on top of the world. I was like, I had never felt that good of shape and that driven, and just it was right there for me. And I tear my shoulder, and I think the first week I was devastated because it was going to be me missing fall lacrosse. It was going to eke into the beginning of spring, and I didn't know how this was going to affect my transition to college lacrosse, which is a huge jump from high school. And I just, again, trusted in the process that it got me there. I again took that look in the mirror and was like, look, dude, you've dealt with way worse. This is just a shoulder. We can heal this. We can heal this, man. I had a wonderful surgeon, a great doctor guy in Charlotte who I really trusted. And ironically, his name was Patrick Connors and my middle name is Patrick. And so it was Connor Patrick on my bracelet and Patrick Connors. And it really messed up a lot of people on the surgery day because they didn't know who was who. But yeah, I trusted these guys just like I trusted my doctors in the hospital up until that point. And again, the medical world is incredible. What they can do now more than ever is almost unimaginable back when I was in the hospital with robotics and prosthetics and everything else. And again, I trusted these guys. We went back to the drawing board. We rehabbed, we worked on it. And when I stepped out on that field for the first time and scored my first goal, it was a moment that I definitely will never forget. It was so special to me, and just the reaction my coaches had, my teammates that were there, and what it meant to them as well. Again, that's going to be enshrined for the rest of my life, and a story that I will never get tired of telling because it took so many special people to get there, and it was just a thank you to everyone, that we were able to achieve this together and not just on my own.
Man, they're going to make a movie. You're going to make a movie. And that goal, I can already see it. That's the end of the movie, right? You scoring that goal and everybody like celebrating around you, and just the feeling of triumphing, excelling through adversity, which is what we're talking about here. And I'm sure that the book that our listener can listen to could get a copy of today would be every bit as inspiring. And I'm excited to continue to tell that story with you. You had said the importance of the we, because you didn't score that goal on your own. Can you talk a little bit about the we that we surround ourselves with?
Yeah, I think people are so important in our lives, and what's crazy to think about now in a world where we can reach somebody across the planet in a millisecond with the device that is attached to our hip almost 24/7. We feel so isolated at times and so estranged from people and so foreign from people when in reality we're as close as we've ever been. And I think my journey has been scattered with so many special people that it just has felt like, I needed their strength in those times when we met. They needed something from me that created a bond, and that bond is everlasting. And it started, with my family, my brothers, and the people that I'll have for the rest of my life, right? Your built-in friends for life. And I know when we were in middle school and younger, we butted heads, we fought just like any other siblings would do. But these are the guys that I love, more than anybody, just like my parents, and you'll have them for the rest of your lives. And for any parents out there that have kids that are fighting and bickering all the time, I promise you, we were probably way worse, putting holes in the walls, going to the ER. I mean, we were probably way worse. But these are without a doubt my best friends to this day. We love each other so much. And they sacrificed a huge amount when I was in the hospital, and having both their parents away from them to help me and take care of me, and living with grandparents, living with family friends for months on end. When again, my older brother was 15, my younger brother was 11, 12. I can't even imagine what that was like, and watching their brother going through what I went through. And so you start seeing how much it means to people to be there for one another. And as I got older, I just appreciated these relationships so much more. I think, at the time we're happy to see each other. We always talk about the joke, when you're a kid, you never remember the last time you played at the park, and you never walk away and said this, said bye, right? It's just one day we all grow up and we all go our separate ways. But being able to stay in touch with people as much as possible, like that gives me strength when I'm down. That gives me strength when I'm hurting. I rely on people to fill that need, and instead of pushing people away, which I think we do at times when we're insecure, when we're dealing with stuff, because we feel like our problems are a burden. We feel like, we see on social media they're having a good time. We don't want to annoy them or bother them because we're dealing with something. It's like, it couldn't be further from the truth. And we need to rely on each other. And when I talk about that importance of it's knowing that, listen, every single person on this planet is going to be dealing with something. And instead of pushing that away and trying to hide that from each other, it's just accept, like, look, I'm going through something, you're going through something, we're all going through something. Let's just be there for each other. We don't know exactly what we all need, but if we're there as a human being, collectively, we're so much stronger than we are by ourselves. And that's just a testament of time. We've seen that through generations, when the humankind has come together to move mountains and make a difference, man. It's a beautiful thing. And so when I started speaking and when I started trying to build the Mac mentality community, it was that. It's like, look, there's so many people that influenced my life and made a huge difference on my life. And I know that I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today without hundreds of people in so many different ways, shapes, and forms, from people that are there with you every single day to people who you don't even know that are supporting from afar. And just to know that we together can make all these things possible, but me alone, it's impossible, right? And that's what I truly believe.
Same for me, and same for every single person listening to this show right now. It's when I isolate myself and am separating myself off from other people because I feel like I don't want to burden others with what's going on, or they wouldn't understand, or I just need to carry this on my own right now. That's like the pit of my suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have gotten out of elementary school with all the people that were loving me and supporting me, right? Like, none of us has done anything on our own. You didn't recover on your own. I haven't built a company on my own. I'm not doing this podcast on my own, right? This is all built on the shoulders of everyone else that's ever influenced me and has ever helped me or taught me. So I think once we open up to what you just said, that we're all helping each other, and we just reach out and stay connected with people, that's how we can really, one, be grateful for the people in our life, and then two, not suffer alone. Because this isolation in COVID helped us get all isolated more than ever. I think social media and technology has helped us get more isolated. And I think people are less happy than they've ever been as we continue to isolate more and more and more.
100%.
I wanted to talk about insecurities. And because it's being a teen. We were talking about this before we recorded today. Being a teenager or a preteen, like, we're so concerned about getting a pimple, or what are people going to think about this shirt? Even, like, is this shirt cool enough to wear? And here you are as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid who's now had, synthetic skin replacing your skin. And, what can you say about these insecurities that we have, and as we think people are judging us?
Yeah, growing, being a kid in that time of my life, it was eye-opening, and we talked about it. I spent some time early on where it took a while to get used to the way that I looked in this new version of myself. But what I always tell people when I'm giving speeches, and I know I talk about it in the book a little bit, but we're so critical and so judgmental on ourselves when we're healing, when we're going through adversity, when we're not the best versions of ourselves. And when I'm in the hospital and I'm physically healing, not and mentally healing from this massive event in my life, I'm sitting there and I'm so scared of that person that I see. I don't want to brush my teeth in front of the mirror. I don't want to get ready in front of the mirror. I'm avoiding my reflection at all costs. And it was because I was hurt. I was struggling. I was healing. And as I started to gain confidence through my friends, through the people that love me, and they started, treating me just like I was before the accident, they started reminding me of the best parts of who I was, and not just that I was an athlete, not just that I was this kid that was running around on the field, but I like to have a good time. I like to bring joy to people. I like to smile and have fun and laugh and all of those things. And you stop seeing those scars more and more, and you started seeing who you were from the inside out. And when I go and I talk, I try to preach that the most, because when we get so down on ourselves because we look a little different, or we're not happy with the version of ourselves that we see, it's usually because we're dealing with something, whether it's adversity, whether it's traumatic, whether it's emotionally, internally, whatever it may be, but we're not the best versions of ourselves. And I was just trying to focus on getting to the best version of myself. And when I focused on that, and you started seeing the improvements in your life, again, both mentally and physically, then I started smiling a little bit more. I started hanging around the mirror a little bit more. And then I started owning some of that uniqueness. All right. I had to come to the grips early on that, look, there was no amount of surgery that was going to fix everything. I was going to have some scars no matter what. And did I really want to spend every other month under the knife once I started getting back to the lacrosse field and back to school? No, I wanted to be a normal kid. And I had enough people there reminding me of who I wasn't the person I saw on the exterior, but it was who I was trying to be on the interior. And although I wasn't always my best version every single day, on my low days, that's when those people are there to pick you up. And on your best days, man, they're just along for the ride, enjoying it. And I think it came to owning that uniqueness as well, where it's like, we joke about it. I joked about it with you on the phone, but I had to own the fact that I was going to look different and people were always going to be staring at me. And I didn't have to internalize it and be like, hey, it's because I look different. It's like, let's change that narrative. Let's stop being negative towards ourselves and our inner self, and let's own that uniqueness. And I was like, look, I've been through something that none of these people could ever imagine. And I'm happy about it. I'm here about it. I'm promoting it. And so we made that joke, but it's about, I always call it being the hottest man in the room. Unless somebody else has gone through what I went through, like, I feel that confidence. I feel that joy that, yeah, you're all staring at me, but it's not because, I may look a little different, but I got a huge smile on my face. I think I got great hair and good eyes as well. Like, that's
You do.
but I have a unique voice. I'm a big guy anyway. There's so many other things that I could lean at outside of the scars, and it's really easy to lean on those scars and be like, oh, that's what makes me different. But again, it's okay to be different. We're all unique human beings, and so why not be the hottest one in the room and enjoy that? And who's going to tell me different?
Who's going to tell? Like, oh, man, I love this so much. And because every single day I can make the choice to walk out into public with my shoulders back and put a smile on my face and say, man, if anyone sees me today, I'm going to brighten them up. Right. Like, if anyone looks at me today, it's because I'm carrying myself with a swagger and a confidence. It's also easy for any of us. I don't care if we've been through your adversity or our own adversity, to think that oh man, things aren't going well for me today, or I'm not the best version of myself, or somebody looked at me with a sideways eye and it's because something's wrong with me. And to have that kind of victim mentality of, man, what's wrong with me? And it is seriously just my internal interpretation of everything. Right. The world is the way I choose to see it today.
Without a doubt.
I had a guy, I think flip me off just this week. And immediately I was like, because, when I was younger, something like that would happen. And I like, my mind would start racing to all these different stories about what's wrong with that guy or what's wrong with me. Yeah. This was just this week. And I'm like, okay, it's my choice right now how I'm going to frame this exact situation of this guy driving by, putting his hand out of his car and giving me the middle finger, and so I used the opportunity because, there is an immediate thought that comes on of what a jerk or what's wrong with me. And then there's a second thought that can come up. And so I just chose a second thought, which was, I'm going to say a prayer for that guy. And this is just me spreading positivity to somebody I don't know. But if somebody is having that bad of a day, they've got to roll their window down to put a middle finger out and try to create some hate. They're hating themselves that day. Mm-hmm. And then I said a prayer and I said, man, I'm a force for good. I'm out here to make the world a brighter place, a happier place. And it was just a choice. It's just a choice. And I think your story of people, being curious, they haven't seen a person like you all the time and looking at you. And then you get to say, or what does that mean to me? Well, it means no one's been through what I've been through. One of my favorite things you said is your scars are your symbols of survival. How do you, because now you do look yourself in the mirror and you do put your shoulders back, you do have this swagger. What do you say about the man you see today?
I think I'm as happy as I've ever been. I can be honest about that. It's always you're going through things, where you might have some self-doubt. You might have maybe things aren't working out the way that you want, but a beautiful thing that I get to experience every single day is when I wake up and I, go shower, I look in the mirror, you're reminded of the scars and the fact of this is what I've been through and this is what I'm able to overcome and handle. Right. And it's a representation of so many things in my life that took a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, but was so worth it in the end. And if I was able to tell, that 13-year-old or 14-year-old that was going through it, who had doubts, who when the days were the hardest was like, man, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I can't do this. I think he would be very proud to see where we are today. And that's what brings me joy, because I remember how difficult it was in those early moments in that hospital bed when you felt like you lost everything. You felt like the rest of your life was going to be out of your control and almost hopeless. And again, to be able to sit here at 28, almost 14 years later, just continuing to do things that I never thought were possible and live a full life. And man, it brings me joy. And so I'm reminded of the scars as, again, not as something that's painful or upsetting to me, but a symbol of hope, a symbol of resilience, a symbol of something that, when I'm doubting, when I'm hurting, it's like, dude, we're capable as a human being. We're capable of so much more than we could ever imagine. And this is living proof. And you just got to believe that and trust in that. And when my back's against the wall, I feel like, look, I got great people around me. I got a great support system, and I got to lean on these people a little bit more in times of trouble. But again, as human beings, we've always been resilient, and we're capable of doing things that we can never imagine. And just know that we have those tools inside of us. It's about using them to our benefit, because most of the time we use them to our detriment, right? We use our mind to tell us negative things. We use our heart to not believe. And we don't have that faithful courage, in the times when those things are out of our control, and we got to have that hope. And again, my story is one of those things that I can control and what I focused on controlling. And when you use them to the best of their abilities, it's capable of doing so much more than you ever thought.
And we're getting to the Mac mentality that we promised we would talk about. So what is this Mac mentality?
So after being able to look back on my life and some of the highs and the lows and what worked and what didn't work, I wanted to preach a message which was, again, one of those things that you can control, right? And a mindset. And when we talked at the beginning of this as of the power of the mind, I was like, that was the key early on. To me, when it was dealing with adversity, when it was dealing with those problems. And I wanted to kind of do a play on words because my nickname was C-Mac. And so I took the MAC and I thought of a few words, but it was motivation, attitude, and courage. These are three things that we can control in our everyday life, and three things that all work together in unison in a way to see improvements, to see changes, but also to deal and withstand those difficulties in our lives, right? Motivation, the way that we talk about it, is the driving force behind human action, both positive and negative, right? But anything that we do in our lives, there is a force behind it. And when we use that force in a direction that we want over sustained time, I use the story of me walking, me trying to get back, right? The getting better, getting a little bit better every single day. When we maintain that motivation over a course of time, that's when you see big changes. That's when you see you accomplishing these goals. You need that attitude when you're viewed with, when you face those problems, when you get that roadblock, when every single day when you wake up, right? It's your choice to look at it as a positive, as a negative. It could be, oh, this is another day. Or, oh, this is another day. You know, I have the, right? It's like just a chain of changes of the voice we use in our head can be the biggest difference, right? And that's all with our attitude, is our perspective, our view on things. And again, something that we usually can control. And when we change that perspective, we usually change the reality and change what we see. And then the last one to me, which is the most important, is courage, because there's so many things that we can't control. There's so many things we can't predict. There's a whole world of people and things that are out there. And instead of being afraid of this, instead of living in that fear or in that worry or any of those things, right? If you have courage, people always think the courageous people fear nothing. And it's not, it couldn't be further from the truth, right? They understand that fear is out there, but it doesn't phase them. They understand that they have those tools, they have that strength to not just go through it, push through it, excel through it, but withstand it, because there's going to be days, weeks, months where you might be dealing with something, and you need to have that courage every single day when you wake up, that it could get better today or it could get better tomorrow, right? And by just continuing to have that courage to withstand that adversity, that's when you're able to persevere. That's when you're able to overcome so much more than you ever thought. Because it's usually that moment when you feel like you're about to fade, when you feel like you're about to fail, when you feel like you're about to give up, when you just get over that last little hurdle, it's like, wow, things start taking off, right? And then it's like you have to understand that with that courage, with the right attitude and the right motivation, whichever way you work it, that mindset is a powerful tool, and can be your biggest ally and your biggest weapon when dealing with life's great unknowns and life's great challenges.
The Mac mentality. I'm taking it with me. My brother, thank you so much for sharing that wisdom. And we've got this free gift. Connor is offering the first 2 chapters of his book. If you're a subscriber of our newsletter, you're going to get a free copy. And if you want a copy of those first 2 chapters, just go to goodmoodshow.com and you can sign up for the newsletter and download it instantly, or reach out on the contact page and we'll send it to you. Man, I'm sure there are people that are going to want to learn more from you. How could people, buy the book? Obviously, I know you said it's available on Amazon and also Barnes and Noble, but how do you want people to get in touch?
So I have a very active community, whether it's through my website, which is macmentality.com, or you go to my social medias, either Connor McKemey on Instagram or Mac Mentality on Instagram, Twitter, all those, where I just love having people reach out. You know, I always, everywhere I go speak, anywhere I go, I post a little QR code that gives you those links, and just letting people know that hey, this is a safe space. Like when you're going through something and you feel like you don't know who to talk to, it's like, reach out. We sit there, I go through all these messages, I respond, I try to add some perspective, I try to add some positivity, and just let people know, because I can't sit here and preach the importance of we and having those people in your life if I'm not going to be there for my community, for those people, right? And so I love having people reach out, and if it's having those one-on-one conversations, if it's bringing them to their schools or their businesses or whatever it may be, and putting them in front of their teams and their leadership, like all of that stuff is great. I love doing it. I love talking to people, and it's been my calling. And again, I believe wholeheartedly that if you're just impacting one life, then you're doing what you're supposed to do. And so if you're impacting more than that, great, incredible, right? But if one person on this planet heard this story and heard this message today and it clicked for them and it made a difference, then we're both doing what we're supposed to be doing. And that's what I believe in, and that's what keeps me going. And so if we can continue to spread that positivity, that joy, and that happiness, and that in lives, man, that's what we're here to do. And I love doing it.
And you're so good at it. You did. I could promise you one person today at a minimum has been inspired by your story, and that's me. Just being around you, man, lifts me up. I love the Mac mentality, and I needed the reminder. You know, one of the things that we all can lean on, because I know every person listening has had adversity, is you survived it. You wouldn't be here to listen to the show today if you didn't get through every single thing life has tried to throw at you. You were capable of getting through all of them. And your story has reminded me that, hey, I can look back at past adversity and say, hey, I got through that one too. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today, Connor. It's just been my honor to get to know you and call you a friend.
Thank you so much, man. Continue to spread the good word, man, and add that positivity in the lives that I know you already do. And let's continue to do this thing together, right?
I love it, man. All right. We'll see you guys.